And the ones who did that very badly were the British. They started first great push of British support, the long-standing regular army folks out there. They went off and they got slaughtered in the first battles in the first 2 months of the war. And you effectively came back and said, well, that army is gone. They're all dead or they're wounded, there's nothing left. And so then we have to think of other ways of doing this. And so that debate, draft, conscription, we can call people up to serve, and if they don't want to serve, we will explain to them that your choice is maybe 20 years in prison. Whoa, that gets serious stuff. And there, the battle goes on. President Wilson signs on after a time for let's have this mobilization through conscription of the entire American population, at least the American male population at the time. And after a considerable period of time, and longer than it probably should have taken, and certainly I'm feeling the Allies saying, God, can't you decide this quickly and you can start building the army? We passed conscription. And that's how the United States fights the major part of the war, ending up with about 2 million troops overseas at the armistice, and with the promise of 4 million American troops being there within the next year if they had been needed. So we've got the army on the way. Next thing that we need to struggle with beyond, here's the first loans that we made to the Allies. How do we raise all the money for everything that's going to be needed? And again, you've got legislators wonderfully saying, whatever we can tax, we'll tax. And this can be theater tickets, this can be food, this can be various other kinds of equipment, definitely an income tax. And suddenly the income tax turns from vintage 19, right after the passage of the Income Tax Amendment. This touches 1% of the population. The really rich folks in the country have to pay some income tax, but that seems reasonable because they're doing very well financially. And this now gets down, we're talking about people making $500 a year. We are able to tap you for some income tax. And suddenly the income tax and federal taxation becomes a continuing part of the American experience. And as we move toward when are you going to be filing your taxes, what kinds of returns do you get, you can think back fondly to a day before this was the way things happened. Next to the income tax and the other taxes that are there, will also raise money by the marvelous bond drives. And those of you doing any of the art of World War I run across some of the great illustrators with their war bond posters. And here will be the poster that is it looks like German planes flying over a bombed out Statue of Liberty and saying, you want this to happen in our country? If you don't buy a bond. And you would have songs about that and just people going out pushing that. And so you had a combination of financing of the war, then this combination. Tax you immediately, that's taxation. Tax and we'll pay you back later, but loan us the money because we need it now. That's the bond campaign. Next to the pieces of what government is doing and what the Congress is doing, the whole regulatory government. And needless to say, that great debate goes on today in the realms of, and we'll put it the extreme sides of things. Here are some of the liberal Democratic candidates. Here is President Donald Trump. And should we have government regulating all variety of things? No, say the Trumpers. This should be the work of the free market and the economy. Or at the least, leave some of those decisions to the state governments rather than the federal government dictating. And so there you get, by the end of the congressional portion of the congressional session, you've got Congress writing statutes that talk about we are able to regulate, and this is government giving orders to, some of the major areas that touch likely the great majority of American citizens, in particular the great majority of American citizens who live in cities. One, transportation. Do you want to be getting around on railroads? Well, the government has taken those over, or almost taken those over. They have shut down the train that you would like to take down to Florida so that I can get away for a vacation. Still too early to fly down there in any respect. There's that. There's food, reasonably regulatable topic, and one that certainly hits close to home. And the third piece of the three, and by no means the only one, fuel. Major fuel at the time, we're talking about coal, and the government says we need to control that from coming out of the mines to where it gets sold to where it gets shipped. And there are government statutes deciding how all of those pieces are going to track themselves along. Last of the pieces, and this is again for the civil libertarians in the room and interested in the war, the first act that Congress jumps into what freedom of expression means in wartime is a 1917 statute called the Espionage Act. And we start off, and what's espionage? Well, it's an open-ended term. And the statute itself starts with any number of things that if we said, here's what we are trying to regulate, probably 95% of the population would say, that's spying. We shoot spies, don't we? Here is somebody working for your German government who has come in and tried to figure out where the weak points in this American fortress are. They ship that back to Germany in case they're ready to use it. And we catch up with the person and we charge them under federal law and we subject them to possibly even the death penalty. Oh yeah, I understand that's a piece. Numbers of other things like that, not terribly controversial. When we start getting controversial, and we've got sections of both the 1917 Act and the 1918 Act called the Sedition Act, is where we start talking about what kinds of things can you say about the war effort to whom, and if you do, you may be subject to federal felony criminal prosecution and serious jail time. And some of the examples there are you able to go out and start talking with prospective draftees. My number has just come up and they're going to be sending me to the draft, I don't want to go. And you're saying, don't go. Terrible war, we're on the wrong side of it, there should be no good wars. Is that a criminal act? Yes, says the early Congress, should not be doing that. How about for people already in the military? Are you free to go around to a meeting at one of the camps and ask the commandant, or don't ask the commandant? I'd like to have a meeting where I talk, what's wrong with the war? You can't do that. The statute here says you can't do that. And we then drift, that's sort of the 1917-ish statute. By 1918, we've got a list of things that you cannot do under criminal penalty that includes such things as being critical of the Army and Navy. What the heck does that mean? Not respecting the flag. What does that mean? And a major objection after the war, and really what gets the start of much of the First Amendment law in the United States Supreme Court, are some of those statutes as they were used to prosecute individuals who were out there. That's that great sweep of legislation of about 6 months of the 65th Congress that I would argue is as impressive a record of congressional accomplishment as any in the 200+ year history of the country. And certainly by comparison with what's going on now from Congress, it just looks staggeringly better, even though you don't agree with everything that's there. But my God, they were getting legislation passed, and that's what we elect them to do, and so they've done that. That's period 2. Period 3. We're now in roughly November 1917 up to, and we'll pick kind of June of 1918. Here things suddenly start not going so well. And what changes much in the American situation and the kinds of things that we see, number one, big piece, Russia drops out of the war. Russia, the largest army, one of the major allied powers there, goes through this 6-month cycle of we chase out the 300-year-old Romanov autocratic dictatorial government. The Tsar resigns, not too long thereafter gets killed, and for the time being it looks like we've got a moderate European kind of liberal government coming in to replace them. That unfortunately lasts only about 6 months. And then following them are guys named Lenin and Trotsky and others who, with a minority of the population, take control of the Russian government. And they run on the 3-word slogan, bread, land, and peace. With peace being a big chunk of that. Get us out of the war. We are just slaughtering Russians for no particular purpose. And that's in fact what happens early in 1918. Peace treaty there, Germany saying, we won the war on the Eastern Front, and we're going to be pretty demanding on what we come up with. And the Russians, Lenin, Trotsky and company, feeling we simply can't continue fighting, or we're not going to be able to run Russia because there may not be a Russia. And naturally the consequence of that is what happens. You've got all of the German troops who were fighting on the Eastern Front for 3+ years, suddenly are free to go and fight someplace else. And suddenly a situation that looked like, well, the Allies have got more troops over there and maybe more equipment and everything else, shifts around. The Germans may now have gotten control, or at least majority of the personnel over there, and things get fairly scary for the Allied cause that we're running into. And the Allies, having gone from, oh, it's nice to have the United States on our side, we love their money, we need that as much as we can, we love their Navy, they're a great addition to our Navy, do we really need them fighting on them? Oh, we're doing fine as we are. By early 1918, it's please Americans get your troops over there as quickly as you can, because you may have waited too long and suddenly France will have just collapsed. Britain may be ready to bail out. We've already lost Russia, and this war may be over, and Germany may have won it as we are racing along. That starts pushing on the Wilson administration, and you get congressional hearings, all variety of other things, of saying Congress has not done its job, and we're not moving fast enough, and the executive branch has not done its job. And where are we? And then let's add to that what other kinds of excitement starts showing up around the country. Number one, a horrific winter, particularly on the East Coast.